Right, so now that we've worked for our mittens, we've worked our cuff, and we're ready to work on the main part of the mitten, which is obviously this lovely pictorial thing. We've got a nice kind of pattern going on, a little bit of holly here. And this is our Fairisle portion of the mitten. So we want to have a little look at some of the elements that are involved in Fairisle knitting, because it's a beautiful technique. First things first, it's worked from a chart. Now, if this is your first experience of a knitting chart, I wouldn't blame you for sort of screaming and running from the room, but please don't worry, because it is not at all anything to be afraid of. It is very, very easy for you to be able to take this chart and work your knitting completely happily, and I'm able to say that because I can do it. And if it was anything too tricky, I just couldn't do it. So this is what the chart looks like for the mitten. Now, ignore all of this for a minute. I'll tell you what that is in a minute. But if you just kind of look at this part, it's really quite easy to see, except it's much too big. But it is sort of easy to see how this relates to this, isn't it? I mean, you can see that holly part there has become this part here. You can see those kind of triangle parts have become this part here, and there's a band and a band. So you kind of can see very easily how this relates to this. So, you know, it's not like it kind of magically appears and you can't see the pattern beforehand. But how do you read this? How do you know what to knit onto this? Well, let's have a look. What I've done is I've just blown up the headband pattern, in fact, because it's a bit bigger and it's a bit less scary than the mittens for now, and it's a really good kind of teaching aid. So we're just going to work from this more simple version, but again, you can see, can't you, it's the holly leaf portion, or the holly portion. So this is what your charts look like. You've got them in your book, so they're not, you know, you can have a good old study of them. And what you can clearly see is that the blue on here relates to the blue on here. The white on here relates to the paler colour on here. So that gives you a clue. First of all, each of these little squares is a stitch. So these are the paler colour stitches, or a blue colour stitch, or whatever. So if it's a white square, you're looking at your paler colour. If it's a blue square, you're looking at your blue colour. Lovely, but how do I know where I am in my knitting? Well, that's where the numbers come in, okay? Because Fairisle is traditionally designed to be worked in the round, you are constantly knitting. You're not going backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. You're always working in this direction because you're going round in a continuous loop. That's why we're working in the rounds and using magic loop. Because of that, we only have to read our pattern, our chart going in one direction, and that direction is from right to left. So our numbers are only going to go up the right hand side. Now these numbers relate to the rounds we're working. Okay, so round 1, 2, 3 and so on. So for example, I have just worked in total 7 rounds here, 6 of that rib pattern and 1 with those increases. Do you remember? We will then now be told to work rounds 1 all the way through to the top of our pattern on our chart. So our next round will become round number 1 on our chart, and we will work across our needles, both of them, needle 1 and needle 2, and that will equal 1 round on our chart. Now in this case, if we were about to be starting this one here, it'd be really straightforward because it's all cream, isn't it, working all the way along. We would work our next 2 needles worth, so 1 round, we would work them all in this one colour, this cream colour, all the way around, and that would equal 1 round. Only when we've worked 2 needles worth can we move up to round 2. So 2 needles worth equals 1 round, remember? So when we work on to round 2, it gets a little bit more interesting because we haven't got the same colour all the way around. We're alternating on this particular one, white and then seafarer, or clay and seafarer, clay and seafarer, and so on. Don't worry about that for now, because I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. But that is all that means. These numbers across the bottom are the stitch numbers. So stitch number 1 is cream or clay. Stitch number 2 is blue or seafarer. Stitch number 3, cream, blue, and so on. So the stitches along the bottom relate to the stitches that are actually sitting on your needles. Now with that in mind, this, as I said to you, is the chart for the headband. Well, there's only 20 stitches here. There's no way that's going around my head. I don't know about you. Well, that's fine. All this means is that you will work this particular chart a multiple number of times, depending on how many stitches you've got on your piece. So if I go back to the Terrifying Mittens one again, quite straightforward, you will see I've got the front and the back of the mitten. So this one I don't need to repeat because it's all laid out. I'll go through everything once. With this one, I go through it a multiple number of times, and that will be indicated in your pattern, any Fairisle pattern. If you've got a repeat like this, they will say work that chart a multiple number of times. Okay, so if there's less stitches than you've got on your needles, you need to look for the multiplier on it. Okay, so across the bottom is stitch number, up the right hand side are round numbers. That really is all there is to reading a chart. Each of those squares equals one stitch, so you can see clearly whether you're working that stitch in blue in this case, or cream, or whatever your chart shows you. I just want to come back to the mitten chart, which does look a little bit more scary, because what in the name of all that is holy is this in the middle? It is, ladies and gentlemen, the thumb. And let me show you. Can you see that thumb is stripy? You can see this thumb is stripy, so there's a clue as to what that is. All that it is, however, is that it has been, it's tricky to show you here because I'm quite close, but if I try a little bit, if I was to open that out like that, it's still not ideal. Can you see that stripe kind of going up the middle? Can you see, for example, this blue line going up the middle? This is this here. Now, I hear you ask, why the heck is it sitting all by itself with great big gap either side? Because on my thumb, there is not a great big gap either side. There's a cream, then there's this blue, and then there's another cream. Why is there all this gap going on here? Really easy to explain that. If I look from the bottom, if I come all the way up here, I needed that gap to fit all these extra stitches in. Can you see? When I get up to this line here, there's no gap at all. It kind of carries on. I've got cream, blue, all the way across. There's literally no gap. It's kind of going up in a slant either way. And all that means is that until up here, this particular stitch didn't exist because we were increasing. Do you remember we increased? On the last video we increased our stitches. Well, this is all these are, and if I hold this up to the camera, you will see these little symbols either side of that blue line are increase symbols. Make one right or make one left. So that is why we can't show you those stitches down here, because they just simply don't exist. They only start existing up and around, where are we? Round 18 we get some increases, and then we kind of increase every other round all the way up to get that thumb going. Okay, I will show you how to work that thumb, so don't worry too much about that now and about increasing and whatnot. I'm just trying to explain to you why that chart looks as it does. If you were to kind of cut it out and fold it in half and sort of shape it, you'd see, oh yeah, that thumb is going to start poking out there. So that is why it looks like this. Again, please don't worry if this phases you, because I'm going to work through this with you and you'll see what's going on here when we get to it. That is reading a chart. Let's move on to some more Fairisle techniques now.